Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pat Flynn Show. As you can now see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see us, Dan and I. So, Dan, happy Christmas, Adam. It's good to see you now.
Happy
that
Christmas
we're chatting.
with you. The blessings of Christmas, Adam, upon you and yours. Very excited.
Yeah, very cool. And today's a pretty big tradition for you, right? You've got some folks coming over, and tell us about it.
So we well. I hate to say I invent things, but I do constantly. I can't help myself. I think if you know me, you know that I like to solve problems, and I hate to say that Christmas is a problem to be solved, but Christmas has issues. Once you get married, if there's divorce in the family, if there's step and uncles and cousins, it can be rough for a lot of people. I mean, I do have friends who 9 o'clock here, 10 o'clock there, 11 o'clock there, and they run late all day and get on candy highs and get a little bit greedy. And
I get it.
What we discovered a couple of years ago is when the kids were little is that generally the 22nd, 23rd, nothing goes on. And so a couple of years ago, Tiff and I were just kind of having this conversation about having a party. We used to have an unimportant bowl game as a party, but it was not a good party. People felt like they had to watch the game, and that was kind of a joke, really. And so we came up with this idea of, Adam before Eve, so Christmas Adam. And it's just, this year I ordered, the front of the place I ordered the pizzas from is like, are you serious? That many pizzas? So we order pizza and basically offer a very unimpressive red wine.
Love it.
And that's it. It's
table wine. Love the table wine.
It is not, it's not fancy, and but people will get here and they won't leave because it's just mellow. The whole downstairs is set up. We set it up kind of like for Thanksgiving, but like I'll bring in an outdoor trash can. I have this one that's kind of clean, and I'll bag it up, and so you throw all their stuff, and because we don't want it to be a hassle. That's the key. It can't be stressful. Because this sounds horrible when you say it, but anybody who's had kids and has stuff will get it. Christmas, it can be wonderful, and it can also be, are you kidding me? So that's, and we lose a little bit of that this time of year, and so that's what Christmas is. Just a made up event. Call it a Christmas party if you want. It is perfect. Yeah.
I love it. That's fantastic. Well, thank you for taking time to be here, Dan. Always a pleasure. So for those who are tuning in, we now have the video element on YouTube. So if you want to just stare into Dan's bicep there, you can certainly do so. I just realized I'm wearing this Michigan coat. It's going to get me in trouble. I have no official allegiance because I see you have Utah State in the background. So people are going to think there's some inherent war. This is just a gift. I should just rip this off of me at this point.
Yeah, this is, well, I'll lose a little bit. But yeah, this is my office. So
yeah, let's take a look. And for those just in the audio, I'll describe what we're seeing. So we see Utah State.
And then someone gave me this with my last book. It's
love it. A framed can. Is that Can You Go? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
No, it's 40 years. And then,
40 years. Yep. And
then this is I love books. That's me and my wife.
Books are good.
Books. And then some Harry Potter stuff. And then Sherlock.
Beautiful. And
then that's my wife, of course, is a Hemingway. So that.
Oh yeah, right. Drunk, edit, sober. Famous quote. Love it.
And then this is that I call it the altar. I can't really talk about work with the military, but this is all the stuff the guys give me and girls.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Lots of.
As you recall, my brother died. So, the City of Paradise gave that to us, and this is kind of cool. So this is the only one I wasn't given, but my nephew wanted me to have it. That was something that my brother was given.
Very nice.
Time in Korea. And then books. And this is my office. And then this is also the guest wing. So when you finally get kicked out and move in here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Keep this open.
This is one of the best places to sleep in the world.
I believe it.
The one guest room. And then here's the other guest room.
Oh, 2 guest rooms. All right.
Yeah, and that's my daughter's
Hotel John. I love it.
And the cool thing about the guest rooms is both of them have these little lofts up there.
Ooh, sneaky. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, this was Lindsay's room. So that's
Kids, they start small and they get big.
That's Josephine's. Yeah, so yeah, fun little. There's your what?
Well, there you go, everybody. We got an improv cribs episode with Dan John. So all the more reason for all the regular podcast listeners to go over to YouTube and catch out the new talking head version of the show.
Sure, and you know what we can do in the future, if you'd like, I could show the gym and stuff like that. But you know,
that'd be cool. Yeah, it'd be a nice feature.
The gym, the sauna. Sirius isn't here today, but you know, we could show you, what Sirius hangs out, his hobbies. He does woodworking. It's difficult because he doesn't have multiple thumbs.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but he's quite a craftsman. Yes.
So what's new this past week? You stayed grounded, right? No, because you had the workshop the week before.
Yeah.
So since last Wednesday, it's only been a couple of days since we last spoke. We're recording this a little earlier. People probably will hear this on Christmas. So Merry Christmas, everybody, if you're tuning in then. Yeah.
Well, I'm on a new training plan, which I really enjoy. Been doing, actually had a really, don't tell me, but I had a really quiet weekend. So it's bowl season. So my beloved Utah State Aggies decided to not play in a game and got it wasn't as bad as the news made it. So I watched that game. I watched some football. And then I watched a new show has come out called Mrs. Fletcher. And funny thing is, people say, well, the woman's child goes to college and she discovers porn. And I hate it when people summarize. I thought it was, now that is an aspect of the show, but I found it a fascinating 2019 look at where we are as human persons. And really, I can't obviously because there is sex in it and there's some, I don't like to say inappropriate, but it's not, it's not for everybody. But the thing is, it was one of those shows, and I like this sometimes. I like the early Sex in the Cities because the show would end, and you would turn, and I would turn to you, Pat, and we'd go, okay, I like that. I like a show that makes me look at the person I'm with and ask a question. Really, when you finish, and I don't necessarily agree 1,000% with Martin Scorsese, but when you finish watching a Marvel movie, with a 45-minute fight sequence in a 1-hour film, I don't turn it to the person I'm with at the end and say, so when you're being attacked by 10,000 blob creatures at once, do you want the hatchet to be as effective as a scythe? So and at my age, I do try to watch more. I like to watch more challenging films.
Makes sense.
Because I need to have my intellect challenged a little bit. I like to, when I go fly, I'll very often pick the Critics' Choice movies.
Sure.
Because I can watch Dumb and Dumber anytime I want, but I want the first couple hours of flight, I want to kind of be challenged. And it's not, folks, it's not like I'm sitting around all day arm wrestling with my intellect. I just say that it does help me to do that a little bit.
So I do not keep up with pop culture very well at all. In fact, you're pretty much my source for pop culture, Dan. So I always appreciate this. But it does seem to me that there's a trend. It does seem to me that there's a trend at the sort of writing and the level of quality in TV series, at least now, seems to be generally higher than what we get in the movies that are coming out. Now, I could be completely off because, again, this is not an area I spend a lot of time in.
Of course,
But am I? But you seem to talk more highly of a lot of these TV shows than you do recent movies that have come out.
Mike Brown, of course, Mike Warren Brown, he trains with me all the time. And, he has an MBA. He's also probably the most well-read person I know. And one of the things we've just discussed a number of times is that television, for one thing, there's money in it now with the Netflixes and the Disneys.
Yeah.
So that's big. But they're very comfortable now with having a series that is 8 shows of 30 minutes, 8 shows of an hour, and done.
Mm-hmm.
It finishes. There's no next time on must-see TV.
Yeah.
Does Joey find his sandwich? Okay, and after a while, you can watch some shows like a couple of shows that through the years. You could watch Cheers get tired, and then a decade later, you could watch Friends get tired, and then watching The Office, those seasons after the wedding, and then watching those episodes in How I Met Your Mother, which I thought a cleverly written show, but then it just gets old. Whereas we were talking with Mike one day, and I had rewatched the first season of Sopranos, and I had done this. Is that Delta was using it. And so what I was able to do, you're going to say, well, that's a lot I fly a lot. So on my flights back and forth to Europe, I was going twice a month for 3 months, if you remember that.
I do.
So I rewatched the entire Sopranos first season, and I said, I don't know why they never did another season. He told me, well, they didn't think they were going to do another season, so they brought their best and brightest to the first season. I thought to myself, and then all of a sudden it just kind of hits you. What a good idea. We're going to hire this cast and crew. We're going to have this show. It's going to be well written. It's going to, I liked about the Mrs. Fletcher show. There were items in the very last scene that tied us back to the very first part of the first movie. Like
Sure.
Knives Out, when she has the coffee mug at the end.
Did you see Knives Out, by the way?
I love Knives Out.
I heard it was great. I heard that is a movie that's worth seeing.
It is so worth seeing. But there's a coffee mug in the ending scene. That is the coffee mug that's in the opening scene, and it's not. I mean, it's not exactly. I mean, it's obvious, but it's knitted. It's done. It's finished. And I
yeah.
I like things that put limits. I like things that have limits. That's why I like using Fibonacci numbers so much in my coaching.
Yeah.
We're going to do 3 things. We're going to do 5 things. This workout has to have 5 parts. We're going to 3. And what that does is I think by limiting, you expand. That'll be going on with your minimalism thing. Speaking of, how to be better at almost everything. That book is right there.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, the collection is complete then, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, and my daughter is here with my dog. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I should have pointed that book out. It's right there. So you are in high. Ooh, dang.
All right, yeah.
Pat Flynn is next to Miles Callum's Bodybuilding and Self-Defense, next to Spring Chicken, next to Oliver Sacks's The Rise of Consciousness, Werf und Stoß, a German book on throwing, Matthew Tone's Revised in Fitness and Health. Boy, you got a little bit of.
What actually makes me happy about that is that it isn't a list of like the same 5 books that everybody has on their shelf from the New York Times list of the.
Oh.
What is it? The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Whatever and blah 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 blah. And I'm not even saying that that's a bad book. No. I think it is a bad book, but point that aside.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm dancing with you, my friend. I'll go to parties sometimes and people say, well, one thing I'm not up on is popular fiction. And I'm trying to do a better job with that on the true crime side. Not true crime, but on I like murder mysteries. Always have. It's a weakness for me. But yeah, good. And it's also next to my Sword in the Stone coffee mug, my Game of Thrones book, and it's very exciting. My shelf is very exciting right now.
That's great. Well, yeah, we'll do an expanded cribs episode here, maybe on the next one. That'd be cool to check out the gym. In the meantime, why don't you kick us off by telling us about this new program you're on? Everybody always wants to hear what Dan John's been up to in the gym. So,
well,
is it a training program or nutrition program or what's going on?
It's training, yeah. In fact, also that zero carb experiment last week went really well. But basically, it's an A/B program. But the B workout, it has a combo that I think is genius. And I've thought that for a long time. It's goblet squats for 8.
Yeah.
A prowler run, followed by 8 push-ups. And so I have a kettlebell on both ends of the prowler. And so you do goblet squat, prowler, push-ups, stand up, goblet squat, prowler,
I love it.
stand up. And one of the workouts coming up, I have to do that 20 times.
Ooh.
Which is 160 squats. Now, gentle listener, no, that is not something you do 3 days a week. It's something you do in this particular thing. Was it 6 weeks or 8 weeks? I'll do that twice. So just a challenge workout. Yeah.
That reminds me a little bit. What was the old one you used to have? Kind of like the Eagle, right? Then you have front squats, farmer's carry, and then
front squats and farmer. That was it. Yeah.
That was it. I thought it was like the carry between two exercises, but no, you're right. It was just front squats.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one was vicious too. I love that idea where you have this sort of locomotion activity that separates two different exercises.
Yeah, exactly. And
yeah.
But also think about the number of so I'm standing, I'm walking, I'm on the ground. The levels change.
Yeah.
When you do the push-ups, when you get up from the push-ups, I'm going to have to do 20 get-ups. And it doesn't sound like much, but every time I get up, I have to do, there's the goblet squat. And that really is what shocks the heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing and then the other days, this morning, I did a combination of, I did deadlift, alternating press, suitcase carry, followed by pull-ups. So pull-ups, tired. Huh. And then I did that for 3 rounds. But pull-ups, tired? Oh, man.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. I love that theme. So what would be some other good combos there? So in terms of the locomotion, you have this. I know you're big on the prowler right now, which I am too. That's actually the best thing about switching gyms in Wisconsin. We have a lot of good sleds and prowlers at the current gym that I'm at. So I've been taking advantage of that. Farmer's carries, suitcase carries, all that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. I would prefer, like, if you're not, well, if I'm going to be training an athlete, we'll have a loaded carry day, and I'll put at the end of the workouts.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, and I'm now a normal person, I think it should be seamless. It should be part of the workouts.
Yeah, because what you say is for the athlete is because you want to focus on the more technical stuff first, and carries are they can be intense, but they're pretty simple.
Yeah.
Right?
So
yeah.
I mean, if you're doing trap bar farmer walks, there's no.
It's hard to mess that up, right?
You really, go as far as you can and come back. It's just not. It's not like snatching. So yeah. So if you're if you're like myself. What's nice about the suitcase carry where it is, so rack deadlifts, the alternating press, when I put the kettlebell down, I just do the suitcase carry and I do the loops. And it gets me right back to where I am, to the pull-up bar, and here I go. I tell you, throwing in farmer walks and suitcase carries in a gym setting are amazingly good.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing about suitcase carries, people just think you're putting the weight away, which, never happens in commercial gyms. So
no, it really doesn't. That's one thing. Now that I'm back in the commercial gym, it's really frustrating having to pick up after everybody else's mess.
Yeah.
So what are you drinking there, Dan? What is that? I told you what I have.
Oh, sure. This is Walgreens electrolyte solution. And so I just keep these around, and then I water them way down and keep them in the fridge.
Cool.
And then this bottle might be a couple years old.
Yeah, I like that. I thought you were chugging like a gigantic thing of baby aspirin there. I didn't know what that was.
Oh, what I like though. I think these bottles are about perfect size. If you like, I don't know if do you freeze water bottles at all?
Oh, that's funny you brought that up. So you see, this is a glass water bottle. I left one of these in my car the other day, and it froze. You know what happens when a glass water bottle freezes, right? Now there's glass shards all over my car. So I don't intentionally freeze them, but that happens. Yeah.
But if you ever need if you have a cooler, like you want to a track meet, you want to keep your food, freezing these bottles is perfect, because as the day goes on, you have water bottles. And
beautiful.
Yeah. So God, it's embarrassing. I try to use, if I'm using plastic, I try to use it a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use it once and then I'll try to, freeze it or something. Yeah, I'm not a big, I try not to waste a lot. Of course, then I look around.
That's good.
Like, yeah, you try not to, but.
It's all good. So tell us now about this low carb experiment, because I think you mentioned it
Yeah.
last week, but we didn't get all the details. So what was that about?
So I have this kind of idea, and it's funny. My buddy Rick emailed me today. He's the one who helped me on the path to fast mimicking diets. Um, so I think fast mimicking diets really, next to getting the total hip replacement, 2019's next big thing.
That's the game changer this year. Yeah.
That was the fast mimicking diet. But the problem is, I don't know if I can do it. Folks, I certainly can, but I think I would have a little bit more pow if I did it every other month. And I had this idea this month, like, why not just go zero carb for a week, the exact opposite of fast mimicking? And so I went zero, not a single carb for 4 or 5 days. And it was interesting because I started cramping up like I've never cramped up before, which brings us back to what these bottles.
That's hence the electrolyte drink. There we go.
Because I was, I mean, you're at the gym and I had a quad cramp up doing like pull up or something. I mean, I don't know. There you go.
That's my Saint Bernard.
We have an angry dog. But I don't think I've ever had a quad cramp in my entire life. So, so that was good. Whether I lost, I probably lost, 22% fat. I'm probably about 3% now, 3.1. I'm joking, of course. It was. Sometimes I think there's value in just doing something like that, throwing a fast in the middle of something, throwing Thanksgiving actually. So it can go both ways.
Yeah.
I don't believe every day should be Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. Go figure.
But when it is time for Thanksgiving, I think you got to shovel down all
the fast before the feast is a theme that keeps returning here on the Pat Flynn Show, which I always appreciate. And it's funny you bring up the cramping for low carb, especially with the quad. I wonder if that's an Irish thing when giving up potatoes, because that always happens to me. Whenever I've done any keto type of protocol, everybody reports various symptoms, headaches, lightheadedness, or whatever, but it's always the intense quad cramps. And it's because keto can be very diuretic. You're flushing a lot in that. So
yes, it is true. Woo! Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons it happens. So having that electrolyte drink handy can be a real lifesaver, I've realized, when you're going low carb. Yeah. There it is, the Walgreens. An inexpensive formula. And those cramps are always just crushing for me. Absolutely crushing. For you, how long does it take to get in and out of that terrible phase? You know what I'm talking about, right? There's always that adjustment phase when you drop carbs off completely for a bit.
Oh, oddly, maybe it's because I have so much experience with it. I don't like people say I'll be honest. This time the cramps did throw me off. I'll be honest with that. I don't ever remember the cramps so much, but I don't get the irritable, the brain stuff. I don't get those things.
Yeah, same here. Mm-hmm.
I do notice that I don't need to sleep as much. I go to bed earlier because I'm trying to sleep more, but I'm wide awake. I mean, I get up probably 5 every day, but 4, I'm like, okay, let's go run wind sprints, So
yeah, that's interesting, because that's, again, it must be some type of similar genetic constitution here, Dan, because whenever I do a sort of, and I'm like you, I'm not low carb all the time, but I'll do these periods every once in a while where I'll do a stint, however long that is. Energy is always really good. Sleep is good, but it's less. And I definitely am not as tired at night for whatever reason. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. There's something hormonally going on, and it might just be a little bit more adrenaline. Honestly, I think that could be it. Cramps are always my worst symptom. I usually get into it and get out of that pretty quickly. I know people sometimes say it takes them a full week or 2 weeks. It's usually 1 or 2 days for me, and then I'm pretty smooth sailing. Yeah. And then I feel really good, and then I decide I'm feeling really good, and I'm not going to do this anymore, and then I end it. And then I'll do it again a couple months later.
And do you ever ask yourself, why did I not just keep doing this?
Yeah. You know why? I know why. Because it's not fun.
That's true. And that's true. One thing, I'll always encourage people like that do can you do a 2-day period where you just absolutely increase? You can either go just vegetables or salads, like the salad for breakfast idea.
Yeah.
Which and it's weird because you'll get pushback on the idea about salad for breakfast. You'll get pushback on the idea of eating 14 vegetables a day. But if I said I'm going to do keto or 0 carbs for a few days, most people go, yeah, right on, man.
Yeah. Or just even that you'll get pushback for saying I want to have salmon for breakfast. But if you say you're having pancakes for dinner, the whole world cheers you on.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you're following my.
So a little bit of a, is that fair? Is that right? What's going on here? So why can we move breakfast all around, but not the fish or the steak?
Yeah. See, I'm with you. I think I guess what I'm trying to say is when people hear I'm 0 carbing, it's like, oh, that's fine. Let's go. I know restaurants are perfect, but if you said I'm going to eat, like one night we're at an RKC and they had this really good, really hearty vegetable soup, and so I ordered 2 bowls of it, and you would have thought, people took pictures of it. You would have thought that I was, I had 3 noses or something, like I was some oddity. So it was quite kind of interesting. Even the fitness industry, people find if you decide to eat more vegetables, that's odd. But any kind of weird other thing is okay.
It is. It is interesting, isn't it? All the fitness industry is just weird in general. It's just a weird, odd place.
Fast mimicking diet. The simplest thing you do is eat 2 avocados a day, because that is exactly the macros. The macros handle. And if you were to say to somebody, I'm eating 2 avocados a day, I don't know. Would they be like, oh, right on, man? Or would they be like, are you a lunatic? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Thinking more about this, I think the reason, thinking like, okay, why did I stop doing that? Because I was feeling good. And I think it goes back to that balance that we've been talking about between the fasting and the feasting. Just like you shouldn't feast all the time, you shouldn't fast all the time either.
Exactly.
And we need those periods where it's like, okay, I can go super low carb. I can be strict. But every once in a while, I want to go have pizza and ice cream with my wife and kids. Like that's important. That's healthy. And I want to enjoy that. And like in terms of marginal benefit of keeping carbs completely out of my life, like I don't even think there's a statistical difference in terms of my body fat versus just keeping things, in more of a flux and more of a fasting and feasting. Like there's just no other reason that I think I should stick with it. And I think that not having those periods of feast, especially around the holidays, and seeing how much of a glue, a social glue that food is and that feasting is, to forego that for some odd fitness reason,
right,
like a percentage of body fat. It just doesn't seem like a trade-off that a human should make, honestly, at the end of the day. Unless you've got like a gold medal on the line, maybe like one time in your life.
And, all you have to do is look at former athletes. Not all of them look like, it's hard sometimes to tell when you're around former athletes to see if they've ever exercised. Because of the concussion stuff I do with the military and stuff, I try to stay real close to the concussion stuff. And amazingly, and this is just a segue of segues, but many of the athletes exacerbate their concussion issues after retirement because they get so fat. And so remember diabetes, which is why
diabetes, yep.
I guess I've been told that's wrong, but I don't know how to say it right. I don't know. But if you put yourself in a situation where you're pushing towards diabetes, the destruction on your blood, your artery, your arterial system. But don't forget, that comes up to here. So the importance of this athlete giving up, everything for this contest, for this, sponsorship, whatever. That's fine, except we're not giving them the toolkit to moderate the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Or you can't go fast, feast. There's got to be a cycle to it, a rhythm to it, a balance to it.
Yeah, a continual cycle rhythm. I think you probably should fast more than you feast. I think that's right. But I think when you feast, you should really feast.
Well, that was Ori Hoffenecker's original warrior diet.
Yeah.
The 20 hours of fasting and 4 hours.
Yeah, and I mean, just like in general, like I think you should, like even if you think like through the week, right? Like I'm fasting in the sense that I'm abstaining from things I would prefer to do. For example, I prefer to be eating certain foods, watching certain television programs, but instead I'm working, I'm writing,
Mhm.
I'm exercising. That to me is a form of call it abstinence if you don't want to call it fasting. And then there comes a certain time during the week, the weekend namely, where, okay, now I'm specifically not going to do that work and I'm going to feast, I'm going to play. But the proportion is still percentage wise more, at least for me anyways, at this phase of my life, it is still more fasting. It still is more temperance, fortitude. But then when I shift to that feast mode, especially on Sundays, it's just like there is absolutely no work allowed today for various reasons, not just religious reasons, but recovery reasons, family reasons. I really want to focus on spending time with my wife and kids. So it's full on feast. There's no admixture of fasting and feasting on that day. It's full feast. But the percentage or the proportion for me would be there's still more fasting, but there is this sort of constant ebb and flow throughout the weeks. Well, and seasons too, right? Certain seasons may have more fasting or more feasting. It's an interesting dynamic.
Well, and it's the liturgical calendar was built on the actual life experience calendar.
Mm-hmm.
In the tradition, to abstain means to not eat meat. Carnival literally means the feast of meat.
Mm-hmm.
And choosing, and this is an important point a lot of people miss on the theological side. There is this available to me. I'm choosing not to do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then another thing that kind of got me thinking there, I always thought the brilliance of the work Lyle McDonald did was cyclical ketogenic dieting.
Mm-hmm.
We used it with our throwers for a long time. In fact, if that would be a piece of advice I'd still give to an elite thrower. But the idea that 5 days a week you are zero carbs, and then after you compete, you carb up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you can just watch the athlete when those carbs hit. The emotional changes are hilarious. One, knifers to.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Wait, hold on. Come say hi. Say my friend Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
Hello. Who am I?
John?
Is this? Oh, hey, how are you? It's been.
I am a real person.
Yes, I know. Of course, I know. Dan doesn't make things up.
Yep. So I got to go to the boob squisher because mammogram on Christmas Adam is the way.
Well, that's important. That is very good. Dan is very big of talking about preventative care. So there we go. Excellent.
Exactly. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Okay, miss you already.
Excellent. What a delightful surprise.
We have. I'll be donating my Power Red this week. I'll be going to the dentist. Had to change my dentist appointment. Had to help somebody who was hurting. But the dentist, these checkups, folks, you got to do them.
Get it done. Get it done. Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. It's not the sexiest thing to say. Floss your teeth, go to the dentist. But these things, if you don't do it now, I mean, I've had enough people in my family. I remember my grandfather. He didn't go to the dentist for like 40 years, and then the amount of work he had to get done to his mouth, you can only imagine. I mean, the financial damage alone, right?
Yeah. Well, and don't forget the amount of poison pouring through your.
Oh yeah, just absolutely destructive. Anyway, I think the theme here that we keep coming back to is there's something inherently valuable in many aspects of life about following some type of cyclical protocol, whether it's in nutrition, whether it's in training, whether it's in productivity, anything. It seems like there's something valuable about that.
I remember when the high school I was coaching at, my first go around, a lot of the boys started to decide they're going to focus on one sport. Usually it was basketball. And those kids never really got better. But when the boys started to focus on football, that's, I think, when things got worse.
Mm.
When you go from football to wrestling to track to your either summer sports, like I played soccer and basketball in the summers when I was in high school, because that was just fun. But every one of those things builds up another set of qualities. Whereas if you're just doing one thing all the time, you just keep getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And it's also the antithesis of everything we try to teach in education. And I used to tell the freshman students that it's your first week of high school. I'm gonna tell you something funny. At the end of this week, you have less choices with your future.
Yeah.
You know, this week you can tell me that you're gonna go to Harvard Medical School, Yale Law School, and Stanford to study astrophysics. By the end of this week, you're gonna narrow your choices down by your behavior. And if you what you want to do within the high school person is give them the buffet of life, spread out, let them drink deeply from everything from drama and literature and sport and activities and really get the full buffet. But nowadays, these parents, these psycho parents, my God, every time I go to a party with my friends, it's like, you just sit there. It's like, you know, it gets worse by the year. You know, parents writing letters to Division I coaches. My little Billy is the best, you know, 8th grade basketball player. It's like, oh my God, 8th grade. You got some. I'm sure LeBron was pretty good in the 8th grade. I'm sure of it, but little Billy's probably not LeBron. You know.
Yeah. I'm not quite there yet with our kids, but I'm letting this advice sink in.
Yes.
In case I ever fall into that. So
hopefully
shall we turn to some questions, Dan?
Turn to some questions. Yes.
I'm on a pad and I got the other pad here, so let's see if we can make this work. Yeah, I wish I could show my setup. It's interesting. You're on an iPad. This is actually a computer folded in half that turns into a pad. So I'm a paddy person. Patty. All right. Anyway, this one comes from gentle listener Victor, and he says, "Hi, Pat and Dan. You mentioned precision nutrition recently.
Yeah.
Did we?
Yeah.
Did we? Have either of you tried it?"
Hold on. I got to write down. I missed the name. What was the person's name?
Victor. Victor.
Okay, Victor.
All right. So he says, you mentioned precision nutrition recently. Have either of you tried it? I intellectually know a lot about nutrition and have attempted the fast mimicking diet, but stress and emotional eating are my biggest struggle. I've looked into the book Atomic Habits, which you've recommended. I've tried food journals, portion control. I've even gotten therapy and seen a coach. I also heard Dan's Just Stop It advice on his podcast. None of these have worked, and this almost nightly binge seems to be my one thing to cut out. Have either of you done precision nutrition or have other recommendations? I'm early 20s and relatively fit, but probably 20 pounds overweight.
Yeah, Victor, you know, I only gave that advice a few weeks ago. So you've run through the advice quickly. Yeah, I've done precision nutrition. 2000 and was it 11 or 10? One of the two. I also did the whole, you know, before and after picture thing. And I found it, you get, oh boy, you must get 3-4 emails a week easy. I found it very good for me. But a buddy of mine is doing a program where the company fires you. If you're not compliant, they fire you as a client. And I'm wondering if, Victor, you need something like that. But this is
a little more skin in the game. That always does help, right? When you've got either somebody that you are one possibly majorly financially invested with, that always helps. If you really need skin in the game. But two, somebody you just don't want to disappoint. These points of external pressure can often be very motivating, I found.
Well, you know, in our house, we always, it's the check to BYU. Because that is, you know, if I don't lose 10 pounds in this month, here's a check, you know, make sure it's that kind that you can't rip up. I give to Pat Flynn. At the end of the month, we weigh in. If I'm not 10 pounds lighter, you send it. If you know, it goes to the American Nazi Party or whatever, whatever.
Yeah, I guess, or for me, who's Michigan's rival? Ohio State, right?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, and that seems to help. Victor, I would recommend this. There is a book by Anthony Robbins. Now, it's my favorite one of his. It's basically a 365 day. It's like a day reader. So the book is about, it looks like half a book, and it's a day by day reader. And I think the information he has in there on pain and pleasure is the best work he's done. One of the issues I'm coming out, I'm just spitballing here with you, Victor, because you're young and you're doing some things that maybe are going to have long-term issues. Is that maybe you need to think more about the pain of not achieving your goal.
Mm-hmm.
You need maybe, I do this little box with my athletes. Okay, if you get it's pain, pleasure, and don't. If you get your goal, if you don't get your goal, and I have them fill in this little box, and it's funny because they almost universally do a terrible job. If I get my goal, okay, what pleasure you get? Oh, it'd be great. So you want to spend the next 8 years of your life working with me every day because it'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
And what pleasure will you get from not getting your goal? What do you mean? Pleasure from not getting my goal? Well, listen, Victor, in your case, every night you binge, which means obviously you're getting more pleasure by binging than you are from whatever this goal is you have. Is there pain in getting your goal, which is a tough one? Oh, yeah. I remember saying, yes, I'm going to go to Utah State University in Logan, Utah. And we got in a car and we drove to college, and my folks dropped me off and turned around and went home. And all my high school friends and stuff were partying, having a good time and doing all kinds of things. And, I was in a dorm room, reading economic theory, and then training 2, 3, 4 hours a day. Is there a pain in getting away from all your friends and family? Is there pain in, being lonely? I got my goal, but there was pain with it. And then, of course, is there pain in not getting your goal? Well, it's too bad Tiff just left, but she'll tell you what I look like when I lose. It's not like most coaches. I hate losing more than I like to win.
Mm-hmm.
What drives me is my hatred of losing. That's my engine. If you want to get me going, just remind me of the pain.
Yeah.
So Victor, that's my advice to you. So you asked about precision nutrition, but which is great, but I would my thought is focusing more on the other things.
Yeah, I think that's a great, and that's more fundamental, right? You have to get clear on, why am I doing this? Why does that matter? Right. What does it look like if I succeed? What does it look like if I not succeed? And Robbins, he's big on the neuro-linguistic programming and Bandler and all those guys. And there's a lot of, I think, very useful visualization exercises that those guys use to really kind of twist the emotional and psychological screws, which can definitely be helpful. I remember listening to a lot of those tapes when I was in my early 20s, all the NLP guys and stuff like that. And it definitely had an effect on me, a good effect, because it brought about a lot of things that Dan's talking about. Not just that, but I used to love all the old school motivational speakers too, people like Jim Rohn. Remember him? Mm-hmm. Yeah, those I used to have the little cassettes. And this was a time when cassettes were totally gone still, but it was just how old my car was, and I could only do cassettes. The other thing I would say is, okay, you're doing food journals, portion control. I mean, portion control was such a tedious thing. Instead of thinking about eliminating another thing, I just try something for me, and then you can report how this goes. It's just focus on adding more protein. It's such a big hinge point. Choke yourself with protein. I know that sounds a little bit gross, but if you can just hit a protein target, 150, 160 grams a day, and just force that down your neck, I think some good things will come out of that. And maybe that means you have to use some shakes or whatever, but just the satiety that comes from getting the protein up, more than just trying to focus on the portion controls. can be pretty significant, I found, especially even at night. I mean, even after you eat a meal, just put a protein shake on top of it. And this might sound a little weird at first and it might be uncomfortable, but you're probably not going to want to binge after that. And you'll be a little over full, but it'll be with mostly good stuff. So kind of a counterintuitive thing, but I found that works pretty well for some people after they've quote unquote tried everything. You kind of have to pull out some of these odd measures every now and then.
The 2-pound salmon challenge.
There you go.
Show me you can eat 2 pounds of salmon. Well, let's talk after about 5 minutes. You just can't keep shoveling it in there. All right, that's good. That was good.
That was good. Yeah, thanks for the good question. And that's a great example of the questions we love on this show. Gave us a good amount of context, shows that you're obviously listening to things we've talked about, things that I even forget that we've mentioned, like precision nutrition. It's always, people pay more attention than I do to this show sometimes, which is great. I love that. Okay, here's another one. This one comes from, I'm looking on YouTube now because we have people commenting on some of since I started putting this up here. So if anyone wants to, so for now on, if you want to submit questions to the podcast, if you're on YouTube, just drop a comment below, but also we'll continue with the usual form that I send around to my email list as well. So let's just dive in here. This one comes from user Anthony Poblaki. And he says, how do you guys find the right balance between doing an exercise correctly and making the intensity hard enough to actually stimulate growth and strength? Do you see a dichotomy between that, Dan, or what's going on here?
Boy, I think if you're going to give up, I guess I would like to see what this person means by, because if you don't squat, when I'm front squatting, back when I was young and, with the big front squat, your technique has to be spot on because the load will break you.
Yeah, you'll snap in half.
Coming up with 405 for reps, if I start to, trust me, next time you do 405 for 5 reps, give me a call. But if you sag those elbows down, you can get by there. But once things start once you start to break, you break. Once you break technique, you break.
That's an interesting point in the sense that technique can really, if you don't have good technique, it is in itself self-limiting. It's a limiting factor, not just for exercise, but I think of music, right? If you want to hit a certain tempo as a musician on guitar, your technique better be damn good. Because if it's not, you're never going to be able to break that tempo. And same thing with exercise. If your technique isn't there, you're not going to get the intensity anyways.
Yeah, I'm wondering at the top of my head, Patrick, if he's referring to like that weird thing they do in CrossFit called the slot factor, where
I've never heard of this.
A certain number of your reps can be crappy, but the problem is this: it's the crappy reps that break things.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's what you're thinking, Anthony. But I believe you should have beautiful, masterful techniques, and then from there you keep adding load. I raced somebody one time in a clean. Well, let's see how many cleans we could do. My technique in my 30th clean was as good as my first clean because I have ingrained good cleans in my whole life. Yeah, so there's no.
Well, and that's a good point too, is most people most of the time aren't just trying to get reps in a CrossFit competition. Yeah. You're using the exercise for something that you want to get that is apart from the exercise, right? You want some type of increase in performance or aesthetics or whatever. You're not just trying to get more kipping pull-ups than the next guy. And I guess if you are like trying to be a high-level CrossFit competitor in the same sense of what, I guess you'll just have to do whatever you need to do to win. But I don't think that that's most people that we're talking to. So in that case, I would say, yeah, as soon as you start to enter that technical failure where it starts to become inconsistent. And that's the thing, kind of a funny thing, like what is bad form? And bad form would, to me, is like when what you were intending to do, at the very least what you're intending to do, or what you should be doing, no longer matches what you are doing.
So we were watching some, the other day we pulled out some old videos from the 90s and where the daughters are little. And there was also one in there. There was a weightlifting meet that I was in 1978. As I'm coming up out of the clean, my knees come in. And it's funny because my daughter, Lindsay, made fun of me for having poor front squat technique. Now, I want to tell, in my defense, it was a lot of weight on the bar. And, but it was funny to have her say that, to think that in my home, if your knees come in on recovering from a heavy clean, you get called out by your daughter in this house, which I thought was kind of cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of a cool little thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So Anthony, I would strive for good technique, and your intensity comes from the load and the reps.
Beautiful. All right. Next one comes from Christine. She says, "Hey Pat, just curious."
K or C?
Christin, and we have a last name here, gentle listener Christine Rossi, Rois.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure if she was a K, it wasn't an answer.
Yeah, you would have been immediately disqualified. Spells it the same way as my wife. Okay. Just curious, says Christine. Here's an industry question. She's got two questions. So the first one is an industry question. Do we feel that, quote, experience is more important than obtaining a certain certification? I do believe in always being a white belt and learning and owning in on proper technique. However, it seems that many look for the ACE, AFA, NC, whatever, et cetera, in the, quote, fitness industry, especially for landing jobs. Not saying they aren't reputable, but just because one has a certification doesn't mean they are producing results. Also, cost may be an issue for some certs and individuals too. She has another question, but why don't we take these in stages?
Let's answer that. Christine, and don't take this wrong. Don't let yourself get into an either or on here, okay? The both and answer is the one I'd like to have, but you can have a ton of terrible experience. There's nothing worse than you get a resume for somebody, I'm a people person. Oh, you're a people person. Look at all my experience. But you've not done anything with it.
Yeah. 50 years of being a terrible used car salesman is 50 years of experience, but you're still a terrible used car salesman.
And on the other hand, most of the certs, I know this. I mean, I've been involved with fit ranks and, of course, Russian kettlebells. The thing about those certs, at least I know that if you're certified from fit ranks or the RKC, I know what that means. I know that you've done some things physically, you've done some things show up bubbly, you've done some study. There's some
coaching. You've reached some degree of technical proficiency. Mm-hmm. There's standards, which you're a fan of.
But some other, like for example, there's now a place you can get online. You can get certified online
in a day, in less than a day. There's a couple of these now.
Well, that's real hard for me because it's like, I've had students cheat on my online courses, and do you really want to be trained by somebody who gave me the computer while they're taking the test? Now I've done that actually. Well, that's another story. But so. What I would say is both. I had great, I know a lot of people go to the Olympic lifting certs, and someone said to me one time, we never touched the bar one time. And I thought, well, okay, I don't necessarily think to be an Olympic lifting coach, you have to snatch 400. But it would be nice to know what it feels like to be on the platform. One of the things my athletes and even my military guys will say when they work with me, it's obvious that I've had that. I've been on the platform. I've been there. I've put my hands. I've been under the pressure. I've had to lose, drop weight. I've had, So yes. So to me, and Christine, if you can, experience is great. Certifications are great, but I think what we'd like to see is kind of a spiraling up of both of them. And one thing I would ask you to do. And we just mentioned precision nutrition. If it's you we're talking about, Christine, so once you get, say, that personal trainer certification, hard style kettlebell cert, maybe do the precision nutrition class. And then maybe after that, go to that workshop on recovery or whatever it is. Maybe go to a sprint camp or something like that. Try to, and what you'll find if you do that approach is that you'll have a much better career. My knock on a lot of people who, and it's not a knock, but back in the day, and Pat will remember this just as well, is that, there would be someone, I'd be at a kettlebell thing, and they'd be, well, I did the HKC, the RKC, the RKC2. I did your talk on this. I did club bells. I did CKF. And I'm not, and this is not a knock on Dragon or anybody, but all their education came from one house.
Yeah.
But if you take a kettlebell cert, and then the next thing you do, physically anyway, is an Olympic lifting cert, boom, the synapses are going to spark. And then if you come back and do another kettlebell cert, you'll be you'll be at that moment.
Yeah. Generalism. And just another, if this is something you're looking to do, if you're like wanting to land a job at a gym or wherever else, I will just say that, okay, get a cert to get that job, but then a lot of gyms may sponsor you to go on and obtain further education. In fact, I got a lot of my certifications when I was working and teaching at my college. They just paid for me to just go to, I obtained a ton of certs just because I taught kettlebells as fitness classes for my college. They just sponsor. I'm sure not every school does that. I'm sure not every job or gym does that, but that could be a way. Okay, maybe you just foot the bill for something to get your foot in. And if there's something you want to do, there's probably some opportunity there that's worth looking at.
I'll have to be a little vague, but there's this person who told me one time, I've heard you speak in every one of these things. Now I know I've seen this person because as I'm speaking, they're doing their mobility work on the floor over here. So I'm speaking and they're always over here doing mobility work. So he goes, I got some questions for you. And it was obvious I have some questions for you. They knew nothing of my work. That they, it's the usual question is, do you use maces, sandbags, clubs, shaker plate, shaker weight? It's usually those questions, yeah, I know. I'm doing this program. It's 10 sets of 10, Dan. What do you think of that? Well, I think it's stupid. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you've never listened to a thing I said. But sorry, long, weird segue, but in my mind, that a person can have a lot of experience, but it doesn't mean that any of it got past the front door.
Yeah. Experience doesn't mean expertise. That's a critical distinction. A lot of people who do 30 years of the wrong stuff have just gotten 30 years of bad experience.
Yeah.
So just remember that. So hopefully that it gives some clarity there. A good both and. Yeah. Seek good experience, not just experience, but certifications, education, obviously, 100%. And it amazes me how much people will spend. This always amazes me, not just in the fitness industry, but anywhere. How much people will spend on certifications and how little they will spend, especially time-wise, on books, like reading. That's great stuff, right? Or even going to a library. And as good as many of the certifications I have been at, nothing compares to what you can get just by having a daily reading habit, daily study reading habit. Just saying. Pick up a book. All right. Next one comes from gentle listener Matt. Another Matt. Always Matt's. A couple series of interesting questions here. He says, 1, keeping the romance alive.
Did Christine have another question?
Oh, I'm sorry. She did. Let me go back. All right. We'll come back to the romance question next. So stay tuned, folks. You're not going to want to miss that one.
Romance? Oh, nice.
Yeah. All right. You're right. Thanks, Dan. Question 2 from Christine, and this is specifically for you, Dan. Thoughts on over 50-year-old training, older adults who still want to get after it. Should things like full blood panel work be looked into more so? We all know that dudes don't like this that dudes don't. There's a bunch of typos there. So that's as far as we're going to get.
Hey, Christine, Hi, I'm Dan John. I hire people to train me. I go to the dentist 3 times a year. I go to the eye doctor once. I get my blood panels done. Actually, now for a couple, I have, now that they allow me to go in and have I can go in and just say I want to get my testosterone tested or these. They allow me to do that now. I mean, I pay for it, but I like it. Absolutely the importance of the blood panels. Those are so important. Here's the thing though, Christine, if you're going to do the blood panels, this is the number one thing. You must keep them. and you track, and what you're looking for is you're going to track them over time. Now, for example, my wife just went and got her blood panels, and again, it's funny the feedback, but her HDL levels keep going up. We call that the good cholesterol, and she has been trending up for the last few years. She's changed some things, diet, nutrition wise. She's also doesn't have a thyroid, had to get removed. But obviously, to me anyway, when I see her HDL levels trending up year after year after year, I can assume that what she's doing is the right direction. There's some other numbers that would be nice, but you have to be careful of. Besides blood panels, the next thing would be that if males about, in that 15 to 20 range, females 19 to probably up to 30 body fat range. Those would be the other two numbers. But again, as I've said many times, it's better for a male to be 20% body fat, but to stay at that than it is to be 30%, 12%, 30. I think those massive fluctuations in body fat, I think there is and this is what I've read, it is a sign of real some hormonal damage.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say is you want to track numbers, see them, come back to them every year, and you might get you will probably see bad nutritional decisions in that yearly blood profile better than you'll see them in your before and after.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Yes. And
good questions, Christine. Thank you. Okay, back to Matt. He says he wants to know advice for keeping the romance alive with career and kids, how to argue with your spouse, pineapple pizza, yay or nay, and is a hot dog a sandwich? Take those in any order you want, Dan.
I think the hot dog is probably the finest food ever invented. It is that, and those damn Fritos are my crack cocaine.
I love it. You're a patriot, Dan. It's great.
If you ever see me struggling and you see some mustard, a little bit of ketchup, you know that I have taken care of it with my comfort food.
A hot dog a good hot dog is really hard to beat. I'm with you.
What was the second one from the?
He wants to know if you classify it as a sandwich, though. Not do you like hot dogs? It is. Okay.
And then there's another one I like.
Pineapple pizza. For or against?
Yes, I am.
I am too. I do very much enjoy pineapple pizza.
And I don't like people who question that. I think, if you can put peppers on it, peppers, pineapple, they both have peas. See, there you go.
There you go.
Keeping the romance alive.
With career and kids.
Well, I would come back to the same thing we talked, there is pure romance, and then there's a place here in town called By the Glass, and those are romantic meals for me and Tiff. It's candle lit, a phenomenal wine selection. I got turned on to Lebanese wine at this place. My God, that's phenomenal. Talk about just the smell is amazing. We eat off the shared plates, whatever that's called, and that's good. You also need to respect alone time too, and that's it's going to go back to the one thing. Tiff and I travel so much. We'll go up to 17. This year we had a 24 where we don't see each other. In fact, I see you, Pat, more than I see my wife sometimes when I'm on those long, exhaustive road trips.
Mm-hmm.
But what you do on those road trips is you call, you talk, the most romantic thing. See, to me, I'm not it's feast and famine. It's fasting.
I was going to bring it up. Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's, you can have those moments, the candlelit dinner, and that's good, but it also has to wash and wave over. Like today, Tiff, when I was out training, she went downstairs and got the whole downstairs ready for tonight. And I hate to say that's romantic, but those kind of things, those tiny little, just doing it, throwing the laundry in separating the laundry, doing the laundry, those little things. And to me, and I've always thought this, is that relationships are built up of President Bush years ago, 1,000 points of light. Relationships are based on 1,000 points, 1,000 little things.
Mm-hmm.
All you're trying to do is, at halftime at the Super Bowl, I'm going to get on my knee and propose. That's great, and we're all going to clap for you. But what really is romantic is, I never saw it because I was away. But in the last few months before my mom died, my sister said to me, "It's actually kind of cute." And I go, "What?" She goes, "Well, I'll see Mom and Dad walking, and Dad will reach over and grab Mom's hand. And it's, I don't even know how to explain this. It's 40.
Mm-hmm.
It's 40 years ago, but to me, the fact that my sister said that Dad reaches over and grabs Mom's hand while they're going for a walk
Mm-hmm.
is just, to me, that's it right there.
Yep.
That's it right there.
That was my grandparents too. I learned later, not only that, they had those, they'd kind of like bicker back and forth in a grandparenty way. But every night I learned my grandfather would rub my grandmother's back. Just those little things, right? Would make those little gestures, and you would see that how deep the love was between them. And that was always very inspiring to me. And I would say back to the idea of fasting and feasting. And before you want to feast on the romance, I would say, ask yourself, what fast can you make in sacrifice for your wife, for your spouse?
Yeah.
And I've realized that like sets up the possibility for romance, because my wife's home, she cares for the kids all day. It's really stressful. It's hard to go from that, like 4 screaming children all day long, into like a candlelit dinner, right? So just doing things, taking things off of her plate, sometimes just taking the kids off of her plate entirely so she can have her alone time and refresh herself. That is in some ways a fast for me. That's the sacrifice I'm making, that then sets up and makes for, rather than me just expecting, okay, let's be romantic now, which foolishly I've been there, I've tried that, doesn't work, right? Making those acts of initiative in those fasts, so that way you can show your appreciation, which is just the right thing to do in general. Make those sacrifices, because that's what marriage is about. But then it just makes it possible, and it makes it more meaningful. So that was a big change for me, of just becoming less selfish and asking those questions.
Working with high school kids there'd be these boys who would be late to every practice, blow off all conditioning. It's so easy to cheat in practice. They would cheat in practice, and they thought they'd be able to flick a switch in the game and suddenly light it up. And I think your point was, because of course I think myself, I see all the things the same path, but when it comes to something like romance, you don't want to be like those high school boys. You don't want to have this idea that you can flick a switch.
Yep.
Light a candle, pop the cork, and all of a sudden it's, I'm wild again. It's just nothing. Was there a second question there? I might have.
How to argue with your spouse was the other one.
We've been married a long time, and I can think, Kelly said one time she remembers us fighting one time, and it was a fight. It was in '99. And then Tiff and I had a bit of I wouldn't say a row on Friday or Saturday, but we certainly had a few moments. So we don't fight very much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we might get frustrated with each other, but out and out fighting doesn't happen. And I think part of the reason why is because, well, first off, I'm not sure what we fight about that much. We're kind of all in on so many things in life. But to be totally honest, I think that if you do, like we've been talking about, you go get the kids, and if you feast and fast, and there's rhythms and there's cycles, you don't have to have that. as much as you don't need that romantic candlelit dinner, you might not need to have that fight.
I 100% agree. Yeah. They seem to go hand in hand.
Yeah. I mean, and if you go to a romantic candlelit dinner after a fight, I think you have more problems. Now, gentle listener, I am not a marriage therapist, and I don't pretend to be one. I'm just trying to spout the obvious here.
Yeah, good stuff. Appreciate these questions. They make you think. They make you reflect. So cool. All right, we got one on running, Dan. This one comes from gentle listener Lane Andrews.
Lane,
How you doing on time? How long have we even been going for? I have not been looking at the clock. I don't have a clock here.
I don't know. We've probably been going for an hour and plus. It's probably an hour and 20. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, how about one or two more, Sean?
One or two more sounds good to me.
All right. And we'll save the rest for later, because I know you got Christmas Adam coming up, so that'll be cool. All right, Lane says, love the podcast. Advice is always timely. I have a goal to run my first 50 miler in 2020. Have done many marathons and 50K, but never this distance. My early training is in winter, and I hate running in the cold. Any tips to make my runs more effective, especially in the cold?
In the cold, huh? Well, obviously, at Utah State, our distance runners, and I was, track teams are different. Cool thing about being a track team is that, I'm weighing, between 230 and 270, and my best friend weighs 130, but at Utah State, these guys bundled up. I mean, it was always Nanuka the North time when they went out. Probably, and I'm guessing he's a Northern Hemisphere, struggles, probably Wisconsin kind of guy.
Wisconsin.
I mean, I'm not a big believer in treadmills, indoor treadmills at all. But the only thing is, what they did, they bundled up, bundle up. I don't have.
I wish I could help with this. I can't. It's just not something that I do.
So we're out there throwing the discus in snow. I mean, that's just part of the nature of the beast if you're going to be a Utah State Aggie. But bundle up and remind yourself that you have a big goal, and you're not going to be able to flick a switch to go 50 miles. You're going to have to have some base there.
It all comes down. It's like anything else. Comes down to managing compromise, right? What are you willing to give up to get this done? And that is a big goal. So follow up with us, Lane. I'd like to hear how it goes.
I would recommend that all of your mobility work, if you do stretch, if you do strength train, certainly do it this time. And there's an idea. Go into the gym, get your weight workout in, and while you're still huffing and puffing from your farmer walks, get outside and go. Just an idea.
Cool. All right, we'll finish up with a little practical one here. This comes up pretty often. This comes from gentle listener Dennis. He wants to know our tips and advice for caring for calluses. This is very common in the kettlebell world, isn't it, Dan? People always tearing their hands up.
Okay, now kettlebell calluses, that's just because that's probably technical, but I just remember being in college, my freshman year especially, maybe my sophomore year, and it'd be about 2 a.m. and I just remember my hands were just so hurt. They would just be literally, I'm pulsing them like this because they'd be throbbing. And
just raw hamburger meat, yeah.
Well, it was because of doing all those Olympic lifts, snatch, clean jerk, snatch, clean jerk, snatch. Oh, I did so much work. For callus care, I've always been told that Dick had a thing. It's called, you can get it at the store. It's got a yellow, it's lamb, it's a very thick hand cream. It's not Vaseline. Lamb's oil.
So the Cornhuskers lotion, that was pretty popular for a while. I used that a little bit back in the day.
Dick was a big believer in pre-hand care. So take good care of your hands at night with this heavy, get your hands in there. Cornhuskers, whatever it is, But go, it's at every store. But go to the hand carrier, spend time, keeping them moist. It is strange. I have almost no issues anymore with my hands.
Mm-hmm.
I have good swing technique. I have good snatch technique. And what rips your hands apart is usually either a poor exercise choice or poor exercise performance.
That's it. Common sense and good technique. That's the best hand care.
Yeah. But I do feel for you, man, because Dick had no patience for me complaining about my hands. He would say, that's your fault because you didn't put on your, I think it is Cornhuskers lotion, if it is, okay? I'm pretty sure it's a yellow cap. Is that right? It's got a yellow cap.
It's yellow. Yep. I remember that. And I remember also new skin was a big thing. I had to do that for my feet because my hands suffered a lot when I was, it's always the coaches. It's just the volume. Like even if your technique is so good, there's only so much volume your poor skin can take after a point. And specifically for my feet in Taekwondo, we would used to practice in a basketball gym, the sticky basketball gym with bare feet. And it would just rip the skin completely off my feet. It was incredibly painful, but you're not going to like stop, right? You're not going to be a wuss.
Right.
And
yeah. So in fact, back in the day, you used to be able to type in hand care for kettlebells, and people in fact, I'm sure Dragon Door still has those massive articles on. I just know that some pre-work and then technical work are your two best things. So a little bit of hand lotion work with this Cornhuskers lotion. Who can forget the amazing formula? Hi, I'm Dan John, and every day we better get some kickback in this one. I better get a free bottle.
yeah, we need some more sponsors here.
And then the other one is check your technique. If you want to send if there's a specific exercise that you feel like it really is your hot, maybe send me a video if you can, and I'll do my best to make it. Could be some. It's funny. I'm working this woman, and she keeps ripping her hands apart. I keep telling her to stab the kettlebell, stab the kettlebell. Finally, she stabs the kettlebell and says, "Oh, that doesn't hurt."
There you go. Sometimes it just takes a lot of bad repetitions until you just learn the hard way to do a good one. Yeah, that's how it is. All right. So before we depart here, let me just remind people. If you're tuning in on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. I think there's like a little belly thing too. Like hit that and it gives you the notifications for new episodes. The likes, we both love the likes here. So please be generous with those and leave comments for any questions or topic suggestions for a future episode. If you're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, again, please consider sharing the podcast, leaving those positive reviews. Helps bring new people in all the time. And we've got Dan John's post-deployment program that if you review the show, email it to me, Pat Flynn at chroniclesofstrength.com. Take a screenshot. We will kick that your way absolutely free as a thank you gift. Okay, I'm exhausted with all that, Dan. We got Christmas coming up. What else do you have this next week? Anything before we go here?
I'll be doing my 3 times a year. I go in and I give the Power Red, the double blood donation. I think that's Friday. And I really want to emphasize that, gentle listeners. We know it's good for the community, but for selfish reasons, it's one of the best things you can do for your brain health and for your heart health. So floss your teeth, donate blood, especially if you're male. Boy, that's just so helpful. It's funny. I know it's time for me to donate. I know it.
You can just feel it.
I can feel the hematocrit levels. It's funny. I say that. Today in the workout, I could feel it's like, oh yeah. That's what it feels like right before I give double reds. Oh yeah, it's if you get a chance, if you want more information, Dan and Mary Eads, Eades, wrote a book called The Protein Powered Lifespan Program, and they go into great depth on the value of donating blood, especially for males. And of course, the paleo people used to push it a lot, and who knows what they push now.
Let me make a note one more time, Dan, so I can put that in the show notes.
Dan and Mary Eads, the Protein Power Lifespan Program, and I think it's in one of these shelves. I have like 4 different libraries in my house. So
yeah, always good. Keep books easy. Awesome. Well, this has been a pleasure. Good to see you while we chat. It's always nice.
The video here. That's great.
Yeah, it's cool. So it gives just another way. People have been asking for this. For whatever reason, I figured what's the value in just looking at faces talk? But apparently it's a thing. People are into it. So.
Well, I know a lot of the listeners want to see my guns. I know that. And so I tell you what, we'll make this, if we get, you have to make some kind of number in the, I will show my biceps.
Like and share to see Dan John's biceps and let us know in the comment section. We will give you free admission to the gun show next week. Speaking of, usual time next week, Tuesday?
I think so, yeah.
Perfect. Great, Dan.
Got a great week coming up, man. All right.
All right. Merry Christmas to you and all your family and everybody else out there in Utah.
Best of the blessings of this time of year to you.
All right.
Take care, my friend. Talk soon.
Talk soon.